Lynching in the United States has a long and deeply troubling history that dates back to the colonial period and continued into the 20th century. Lynching is a form of extrajudicial mob violence, typically involving the killing of individuals, primarily African Americans, without a formal legal trial. Here's an overview of the history of lynching in the United States. The practice of lynching has its roots in the early American colonies, where it was used to maintain control over enslaved individuals. Slaves who attempted to escape, rebel, or resist their oppressors were often subjected to brutal punishment, including lynching. Lynching became more widespread and brutal during the period following the Civil War, known as the Reconstruction era. Many white Southerners resisted the social and political changes brought about by the Emancipation Proclamation and the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the Constitution, which granted freedom and civil rights to formerly enslaved people. The Ku Klux Klan, founded in 1865, played a significant role in promoting racial violence, including lynching. The Klan targeted African Americans and their white allies who supported civil rights and political participation. The early 20th century witnessed the Great Migration, during which millions of African Americans moved from the rural South to urban areas in the North. This demographic shift led to increased tensions and acts of racial violence, including lynching, in both southern and northern states. Lynchings were used to terrorize and control African American communities, often in response to perceived violations of social norms, such as alleged sexual advances by black men towards white women. These accusations were often used as a pretext for mob violence. Activists and civil rights leaders such as Ida B. Wells and W.E.B. Du Bois actively campaigned against lynching and called for federal anti-lynching legislation. Despite their efforts, such legislation faced strong resistance and was not passed by Congress. The frequency of lynchings began to decline in the mid-20th century, due in part to changing societal norms, increased awareness, and the civil rights movement's efforts to combat racial violence. Over time, some individuals responsible for lynchings were brought to trial and convicted, although many perpetrators were never held accountable for their crimes. Lynching remains a dark chapter in American history, symbolizing the systemic racism and violence directed at African Americans for centuries. While the practice of lynching has significantly decreased, the legacy of racial violence and inequality continues to be a significant issue in the United States. Efforts to acknowledge and address this painful history are ongoing, as are calls for justice and racial equality.